It's a beautiful film. We're so proud to be able to have its world premiere here with our film. When I spoke to Kamin, they wanted me to come back to Guatemala and show my film Flying Paper with them in the Comalapa community, which I've committed to doing in June. So it's really an exchange. And we hope when we put out our DVDs for our film in the next, I think in 2 months, we're going to include Shikwu as part of the DVD. So I'm going to have to ask their permission for that. With that, I wanted to, I'm going to be inviting Roger in a few moments to speak about our film. But I thought it would be a good moment to give a very brief tribute to Palestinian cinema itself. And I thought it's an important moment to be thinking about what's been happening in Palestinian cinema and how our film has been so very influenced by the works that have come out before us. Many of you who have been involved in Palestinian cinema or have been watching the works coming out of this genre are quite familiar with these films, but I'll just name a couple, and I'm only going to showcase a few that I've spent time getting to know. I used to curate the Boston Palestine Film Festival for a couple of years when I lived in Boston, and we came across extraordinary films. And it was always a difficult challenge every year to figure out what to show, but also to go back and do retrospectives of extraordinary filmmakers who have been producing decades of work. One of them is Marcel Khalife, whose work that I found most influential was Tale of Three Jewels. It's a film that was one of the only feature films ever shot in Gaza until very recently. And it's a magical, realist story about young children and the struggles in Gaza. It's a film that you must see. It's a classic now coming out of Gaza. Another film by Mai Masri is 33 Days. It's a film that really captures what happened to refugees, both in Palestine and Lebanon. And recently, when I was teaching one of my classes, I realized that Mai Masri's daughter was in my class. Which is a total Noor, who's here with us and I think was outside momentarily involved with SJP. I had no idea. I was so touched that I was actually asked her, could your mom come to my premiere? She's like, no, she's in Lebanon, but I'll try. Another trickster and fantastic filmmaker is Ilya Suleiman. He's made an extraordinary body of work, and one of them happens to be Divine Intervention, which is an experimental comical film. And it just so turns out that Ilya is here in New York. I think he's going to be here this weekend and is going to be speaking at Columbia about his film next week. He has 2 films he'll be showing at Columbia University. So look that up and you'll have a chance to see Ilya's work. I actually met him a couple of months ago for the first time in Doha, Qatar, where we were having the Middle East premiere of our film. And he saw my kafia and he was like, are you trying to be more Palestinian than the Palestinians? And I was like, no, I had my premiere, I'm just wearing a kafia. Then he loosened up and we had a really good chat. But he's a really funny, extraordinary filmmaker. 2 films have really been quite acclaimed just in the last year or 2 that I wanted to point out. And at least one of them is in theaters right now, Omar, produced by Hani Obi Assad. And it was one of the nominees for Best Foreign Film in the Academy Awards. And it is an extraordinary film. I saw it at the Angelica Theater very recently, and I met through a good friend the editor for the film recently, and I heard a lot about the struggles they had just getting the film completed and what they had to do. It's a very dynamic, powerful film, fully Palestinian funded, and I really urge you to go see it. 5 Broken Cameras got a lot of notoriety in the last 2 years. It was also nominated for the Academy Awards. And both the filmmakers, Imad and Guy, worked really hard to bring this film out. Guy has been really kind to us, to Roger and I, in introducing us to distributors as we got to know him. And it's another film that's really worth seeing. It's more documentary style. 2 films that you probably haven't heard so much about because they're also just out this year, May in the Summer. This is by Shanine Dabis, and it is her, I think, 2nd or 3rd feature film, and her previous film was America. And she's a Palestinian filmmaker based in Los Angeles, and the film was shot in Amman, Jordan. I have not seen it, but I've heard really good things about it. It was at the Sundance Institute as well. The film that I did see in Doha when I was there was Anne-Marie Jasser's film, When I Saw You, and I was really moved by the film. It revolves around what happened to the refugees in '67 and the kinds of resistance that many guerrilla groups had, and how one of the young refugee kids left his own camp and joined the resistance movement. He was only like 7 or 10 years old. And he's a fantastic actor. I got to meet Mohammed in Doha. And Anne-Marie is a fantastic filmmaker. Her previous film was Salt of the Sea. This film played at MoMA, I believe, in January. And I hope there'll be a larger theatrical run. And we'll get to bring Anne-Marie back to New York. Budrus was a phenomenal documentary that many of you know about, and had gotten a lot of acclaim. Was I think one of the first major Palestinian documentary films that got very wide coverage in broadcast and theatrical release. And Julia Bacha, one of the main producers of Budrus, is based in New York, and Melissa and I have actually been having some conversations with Julia to try and see if there's ways we can get her involved in the media studies program. And one film you probably have not heard about is still in the making. It's called Speed Sisters. And it's about Palestinian race car drivers, mostly women, who are essentially trying to make that their craft and their profession. And my good friend Amber has been directing this film and working with 5 of these amazing women for the past 2 or 3 years. Amber and I met in Gaza when she was doing some work for the UN, and she actually photographed a lot of the behind-the-scenes work that you saw, the slides. That was Amber and also Ann Pack, our producer, and the poster that you saw of our film, that's Amber's image. So I'm indebted to Amber, and I'm a big supporter of the film, and the Indiegogo campaign is still on if you want to contribute to the film. Hopefully it'll be out in the coming year. Now, I want to end the tribute. There's one other film I want to mention, which I didn't have a chance to bring up, is Sama Zogbi's film, Man Without a Cell Phone. Sama is here with us today, and I'm hoping to encourage him to come join us in the Q&A afterwards. And it's quite a funny, touching film, and maybe he'll tell us something about it. The last film that I wanted to say something about is a film that moved me very deeply. It's Arna's Children, and it was shot by Giuliano Mircamis. Now, Arna's Children was based on a story around Giuliano's mother. Giuliano is Israeli-Palestinian. His father is Palestinian, his mother is Israeli. And he's an extraordinary actor and filmmaker. And his mother started a theater in Jenin in the West Bank, where she worked with a lot of children affected by the violence and oppression. And the film follows their story. It was a film that moved me very deeply. I think I've cried every time I've seen the film. And I had a chance to meet Giuliano in 2006. And since then, we've worked together. Now, about 2 years ago, on April 4th, Giuliano was assassinated in the very same refugee camp where we used to work. And it was a deeply troubling moment for all of us in art and cinema to lose one of our own. On April 11th of 2011, I wrote a eulogy and a commemoration for Giuliano, and I wanted to just read out a very small fragment of it because I think it's important to do so, if you'll bear with me. Giuliano was an enigma for most of us. He was born in Nazareth to a Jewish mother and a Palestinian Christian father. He was an accomplished actor and director who starred in many Israeli, Palestinian, and American films. These included The Little Drummer Girl with Diane Keaton, Michelle Khalifa's Bearing in Galilee, Amos Gitai's Kadima, and Kippur. He even had cameo roles in Anne-Marie Jasser's Salt of the Sea and Julian Chanabal's most recent film, Miral. Giuliano had always had a very commanding and cinematic presence, both on and off screen. But undoubtedly, his most poignant film was Arna's Children, which he co-directed and filmed over many years, releasing it in 2003 to critical acclaim. In fact, it came out at the Tribeca Film Festival. A very powerful documentary and personal testament to his mother Arna's dedicated work to establishing a children's theater in Jenin called the Freedom Theater. Giuliano was intimately profiling the lives of many of these children who were active in the theater and what happened to them during the course of the film. The film took almost a decade to create, and these children's lives changed quite dramatically, as you'll see in the film. Jenin was devastated in 2002 by an Israeli military incursion, and the theater was almost entirely destroyed. And in 2006, Giuliano rebuilt the theater. Many of the child actors in the film died as part of, during the devastation of that theater, but they were much older at that time. I saw this film in 2006, and I met Giuliano afterwards. I'd seen it before, but I saw it with Giuliano, and I spoke to him, and I said, I'd love to help out as you're starting your new theater. I didn't quite know how I could help. And he said, why don't you just come to the theater and let's talk about it? And so I came in the following summer and began developing a youth media program at the theater. Giuliano had been doing fantastic work in theatrical work in the theater, but had never considered bringing film inside the theater. And I sort of talked to him about how we might be able to do that. And because theater was such a powerful component of the place, the films that came together were extraordinary. Giuliano's life was a stage where the real and unreal would always intersect. On my last visit to Jenin in June of 2009, Giuliano proudly showed me a new media studio they had built, and they'd fundraised and put high-end editing equipment and professional cameras. The theater had been attacked at least 4 or 5 times in 2 years, and much of the equipment had been stolen, and he found ways to replace it. Many of his staff that had worked with me were quite excited about developing a whole documentary and narrative program in the theater, and some really amazing short films came out. And it really extended his creative vision for combining theatrical performance and cinematic language. As I left Jenin that day, Giuliano and I embraced for one last time in the courtyard of the theater. On Monday morning last week, and I'm talking about 2011, as I heard the news of Giuliano's passing for the first time, I painfully felt, as many others probably did, the thrust of those 7 bullets that pierced his body at that very same spot. We still don't know why or who killed Giuliano to this day. Giuliano, throughout his life as an actor, filmmaker, activist, and father, in fact, his baby was with him in the car when he was killed, but the baby survived, captured the hearts of everyone who knew him, influenced by his intensity, humor, and passion. Giuliano dramatically changed the course of my life, pushing me to work with youth in documentary film in conflict for the first time. And he did that for countless other internationals and Palestinians and Israelis in many cases, and bringing them to Jenin to share his vision, to engage the arts critically as a form of cultural resistance and survival. Giuliano has thus created a stage for all of us to continue performing and sustaining the spirit of his next creative act. Thank you. With that, I'd like to ask Roger to come up here and tell us more about our film.
Thank you, Nitin. So I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you all for coming out. It's really amazing theater, first of all, for us to premiere here in New York. And this is the New York premiere of Flying Paper, but it's also the premiere of the new 52-minute version of the film. And the reason that Nitin and I and Raphael and the team decided to make a 52-minute version is because this is the standard length for broadcasters, international. And it is our belief and determination that this film be seen by as wide an audience as possible. And one thing that I would like to say about the tone of this film, which I think is a little bit unique, is that we focus on the experience of children, and we allow space for the children to tell their story. And the more we edited, the more the adults sort of fell to the cutting room floor, so to speak, and allowing the young stars of the film to really shine. And it's a film with humor. You know, it's uplifting, but it is very much grounded in the realities of life in Gaza, and especially for children in Gaza. So we in addition to seeing the youth on screen, we involved many youth behind the scenes as well. So Nitin is one of the co-founders of a program called Voices Beyond Walls, which is a youth media training program. And this is something that he had been conducting with others, you know, previously in different areas in the West Bank and in Jerusalem. But the first time that the program was brought to Gaza, to the Jabalya refugee camp. And the Jabalya refugee camp is commonly known as the most densely populated place on the planet. So it's an area that has a lot of really, you know, hard issues that the youth deal with. But we were encountered with some very bright young people, ages 10 to 16, who were very motivated and enthusiastic about the program. And about a dozen of these youth stayed with us and served really critical roles in the production of this film. One young woman who you will see, her name is Abeer, and she earned an associate producer credit. She helped us organize follow-up shoots in Gaza, and she conducted many of the interviews with the youth during the Kite Festival, during the World Record attempt. And this allowed us to hang back and let the youth talk to themselves, and in such a natural way that really comes across in the film. So we will be talking more about it afterwards, and I know you're all really eager to see the movie. So without further ado, I am very happy and honored to present you Flying Paper. So thank you.